What if the Mongols had never stopped? What if the thundering hooves that swept across Asia and the Middle East had continued, unchecked, into the heart of Europe? This isn't just a fantasy scenario, it was a terrifyingly real possibility in the 13th century. Let's explore a world that could have been, a world reshaped by the Mongol Empire. Our story begins in 1241. Mongol armies, led by the brilliant General Subutai and Batu Khan, are on a devastating campaign through Eastern Europe. They've crushed armies in Poland and Hungary with shocking speed and brutal efficiency. The knights of Europe, clad in heavy armor, are no match for the swift, coordinated attacks of the Mongol horse archers. The path to Vienna, to Rome, to Paris lies open. The future of Western civilization hangs by a thread. Then the unthinkable happens. News arrives from the heart of the Mongol Empire in Karakorum. The great Khan, Ögedei, is dead. According to Mongol law, all princes of the bloodline must return to the capital to elect a new leader. Batu Khan and Subutai, poised on the brink of conquering a continent, have no choice. They turn their armies around and head east. Europe breathes a collective sigh of relief. But what if Ögedei hadn't died? What if the great Khan had lived for another decade, giving his generals the green light to finish what they started? In our alternate timeline, the year is 1242. The Mongol reconnaissance forces, the same ones that scouted as far as the outskirts of Vienna, now return with the main army. European leaders, fragmented and locked in their own rivalries, fail to mount a unified defense. The Holy Roman Empire, a patchwork of feuding principalities, is the first major power to face the full might of the horde. The Mongol strategy is a terrifying masterpiece of military art. They don't just fight, they conquer. They use psychological warfare, spreading tales of their ferocity to break the will of cities before they even arrive. Feigned retreats lure heavily armored knights into deadly ambushes. Their siegecraft, learned from Chinese and Persian engineers, is second to none. Catapults launch not just stones, but incendiary projectiles and even diseased corpses, a primitive form of biological warfare. Cities like Vienna, Venice, and Genoa, the bustling hubs of European trade, fall one by one. The Mongols are not just raiders, they are administrators. They established the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, by dismantling old feudal structures. Local lords and kings are either executed or turned into vassal puppets. In their place, the Mongols install a system of governance based on merit and loyalty to the great Khan. They establish the Yam, an incredibly efficient postal and relay system, crisscrossing Europe with horse stations. Communication and travel across the continent become faster and safer than ever before, but it's a continent under occupation. The cultural and religious landscape of Europe would be altered forever. The Catholic Church, based in Rome, would face its greatest crisis. The Pope, a powerful political figure, would be forced to submit to the Khan or face the destruction of the Vatican. While the Mongols were generally tolerant of different religions as long as tribute was paid and loyalty sworn, the central authority of the papacy would be shattered. This could lead to two possibilities. Either Christianity in Europe becomes a more localized, fragmented faith, or it finds a new center of power elsewhere, perhaps in a yet unconquered England or Iberia. The Renaissance, that great flowering of art, science, and humanism, might never happen, at least not in the way we know it. The Renaissance was funded by wealthy Italian city-states and fueled by the rediscovery of classical Greek and Roman knowledge. Under Mongol rule, wealth would be siphoned eastward as tribute. Scholars and artists might flee, but where would they go? The intellectual centers of Florence and Rome would be shadows of their former selves. However, it's not all darkness. The Mongol Empire was a great conduit for trade and ideas. The Silk Road would now extend from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic. Chinese inventions like gunpowder, the compass, and printing technology, which trickled slowly into Europe in our timeline, would arrive much faster and more directly. Imagine European armies using advanced firearms centuries earlier, or books being printed in Paris and Frankfurt under the watch of a Mongol governor. This exchange would be a two-way street. European science, philosophy, and art would travel eastward, influencing the vast Mongol domains. A new, syncretic culture could emerge, blending European, Middle Eastern, and East Asian traditions. We might see cathedrals built with pagoda-style roofs, or Italian painters adopting techniques from Chinese scroll art. The world would become more interconnected, but at the cost of European independence. What about the Age of Discovery, with the traditional land and sea routes to the east, now completely controlled by a single power? The motivation for explorers like Columbus to find a new sea route to the Indies might be even stronger. Or it could be snuffed out entirely. The Khans might have little interest in funding risky westward voyages across the Atlantic when they already control the known world's riches. The Americas might remain unknown to Europeans for centuries longer. The political map would be unrecognizable. Nations like France, Germany, and Italy might never form as unified states. Instead, the continent would be a collection of provinces or khanates within the greater Mongol Empire. Local languages would survive, but the administrative language would likely be a form of Turkic or Mongolian, written in the Uyghur script. The very identity of being European would be redefined. Instead of a collection of rival Christian kingdoms, it would be the westernmost part of a vast Eurasian empire. Eventually, even the mighty Mongol Empire would face challenges. Like all great empires, it was too large to be governed from one center forever. By the 14th century, it had already begun to splinter into different khanates in our timeline. The European khanate, perhaps called the Khanate of the Blue Horde, would likely develop its own unique identity over time. The Mongol rulers would intermarry with local nobility, and their descendants would become increasingly Europeanized, much like the Normans in England or the Rus in Kiev. Rebellions would inevitably arise. The spirit of European independence wouldn't be extinguished completely. These revolts, armed with Mongol-introduced gunpowder weapons, would be far deadlier than the feudal conflicts of the past. A reconquista of a different kind might begin, not just in Spain, but all across the continent, as local populations fight to reclaim their sovereignty from their Mongol overlords. So, when we look back at this alternate world, what do we see? A Europe that experienced a brutal, transformative shock. The old world of knights and castles was swept away. In its place came a period of unified rule, unprecedented trade, and technological exchange, but at the cost of freedom, culture, and countless lives. The Renaissance was stifled, the church broken, and the nations we know today never born. The death of a single man, Ogedei Khan, in a distant capital, truly changed the course of history. It serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile civilizations can be and how a single event can send the river of time flowing down an entirely different channel. The world we live in was not inevitable. It was shaped by chance, by choice, and by the thundering hooves that in one timeline decided to turn back. Thanks for watching. What other historical what-ifs would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into an alternate past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content.